Greetings everybody. We are not at another theme park today, but we are in front of the Gamble Plantation today. It's right behind us. It's probably like one of the only plantations that's not in the Orlando area, but in the Central Florida area. So we're going to be kind of touring that. I don't know too much about it, but
we're in Palmetto, or we're nearby Palmetto, and everything like on this street is themed after plantations. Like up the street is like Plantation Medical Center.
Yeah, that's weird. So we're gonna be checking out the grounds, so let's go see what we can find. Let's learn some history as far as this plantation goes. So we're going in. I think it's really funny that right now I don't think any black people, aside from Sheeka and I,
nope, it's just us.
It's just us that are willing to go inside of a plantation, do a tour. So here we go. We're going in. We're gonna go check it out and finally see one. Never seen one before in my life. I never seen or even been in one. I mean, we never really typically had them in California or in Nevada, but it's gonna be a lot of fun. So let's go take a look. Just kind of taking a look and just seeing the dynamics of what they actually had. They actually have this old well here. So the way it works is that when it rains, it'll collect in the gutters up at the very top, come down off of this pipe, find its way through this wood pipe into the shed. Now here is where it gets really cool, is that when you come around the side, you have a bucket, so that way they can use it, put into that drop bridge or the drop you know, that trap drawer there, go down and fetch water, and then you walk in here and you can kind of see where the water would have been deposited. Now if this water rises, then you know that you have a lot of water because based on the rains, but this is kind of just an old well here. And typically we would have known wells to be circular, but since this one is a square one, that would have been able to hold a lot more water, and it's very deep too.
Now, there were two different reasons why Robert Gamble came here. First, the end of the Second Seminole War. Secondly, the Armed Occupation Act of 1842. And the government came up with the Armed Occupation Act of 1842, which stated that if you're male, 18 years of age, a United States citizen, and you had a firearm, guns and cannons, you could come down to Florida and get 160 acres of land for free. Well, this Armed Occupation Act is what attracted Robert Gamble's attention to this area. He was living up in Tallahassee on his father's sugarcane plantation, but he really wanted to get out on his own and start his own sugarcane plantation. Now, the back section was built on first, basically to get a house into the ground so he could start planting his crops and accumulating some money. Once he accomplished this, then he started work on this front section of the home that you see right here. And it took him another 5 years to complete. It was completed in late 1850. Notice that we have columns, 18 of them that go around three sides of the house. This particular architectural style is called Greek Revival Vernacular. It was used by many of the wealthy landowners back in the 1800s. If you've ever been to Washington, D.C., many of our government buildings built around that same time period have the same Greek Revival architecture style you see here with the columns. Debt of about $190,000. Also, the Third Seminole War broke out in 1855, which means he had to refortify his entire plantation for the protection against those Seminole Indians. And that, combined with all the money that he owed, and several crop failures, and falling sugar prices because of exports from Jamaica and Cuba, well, they all finally pushed Gamble over the edge, and he decided that he had had enough. He sold off his entire estate to his creditors for $190,000 and moved back to Tallahassee.
So we're going into the parlor room. So there's a fireplace, it's a painting. I think he has a strange piano right over here. Look at this couch. Yeah, this looks more like a kitchen area.
I was going to tell you, you can sit down in the windowsills, but you already beat me to it. Room, you look above the fireplace, you'll see a portrait of Major Robert Gamble, man who built this house. That was taken in his later years. He was 30 years old when he came here. When Gamble left in 1856, went back to Tallahassee, took over his father's sugarcane plantation, became very wealthy. In the 12 years that he lived here, he was a bachelor, was not married, he had no children. He eventually did get married in 1857 after he left her, and he had 2 children. He lived to the age of 92 before he passed away in the year 1906 in Tallahassee. You notice the dining room table here, sideboard over here against the wall, both made out of mahogany from the early 1800s. And usually what would happen is the slaves would bring in the entrees from the kitchen, which is the back of the house, through this doorway right here, place the entrees up on the sideboard, similar to fashion set up there now. Then they would serve. Gamble and his guests would be sitting here at the dining room table, and of course, Gamble would always want to have the finest china and crystal set out in order to give that look of a wealthy landowner. And if you look between the ceiling and the wall, you notice as the molding goes all the way around the room, that is your picture molding. Now remember, the walls are made out of tabby, which is a concrete. So trying to put a nail into that tabby would be virtually impossible without chipping it away. So they take these picture moldings, move about a 1/4 inch off the ceiling, go ahead and nail or screw those into the walls because they're not going anywhere. Put hooks in different places where they thought they wanted to have pictures hang down, and they can hang the pictures down along the sides of the walls. And that way, whenever they wanted to move a picture around, they didn't need to worry about spackling up those holes in the walls like we do today. You just slide those hooks back and forth.
And this is Gamble's office. You see his desk right here, which is really cool. Look at that. Some rifles. Let's get a chair. And there's that George Washington right there.
Yes, next to this adjustable lamp, and you notice you had too much light, all you have to do is just run it up like this. And the candle moving further away actually lessens the light of what you're working on down below. On the other hand, if you need more light, just reverse that pattern. Bring it right back down again, and then bring more light closer to what you're working on. His major cash crop was sugarcane. And one of the items I mentioned to you was tobacco, and that's what I've got right here. This is a plug or twisted chewing tobacco. And they carry these around out in the fields. When they take a chaw, just pull it on out, bite a piece off, and start chewing on it. When you're chewing on tobacco, you get tobacco juice and you have to spit that out. That's why we have spittoons. Well, folks, you have now entered the original section of the home. Remember, the back section is built on first, then he built the front section on. And this is the slave workroom, not to be convinced with the slave quarters. The slave quarters were actually halfway around the house where the sugar mill was. They were made out of palm logs and thatch roofs and destroyed right after Gamble left here in 1856. So, not the slave quarters, but the slave workroom. And you had 3 different classifications of slaves in Robert's day. You had your field hands, worked out in the fields, harvesting, planting, clearing your property out. Then your second class of slave were your skilled labor slave. There's any slave that a skilled worker could use to build his plantation up. If you look over against the wall, you see there's a cobbler's bench. Of course, shoemaking is a skill. Blacksmith, carpenter, wheelwright, cooper. Anyone who had a skilled worker could use to build his plantation up. You could use a skilled labor slave. And then your top class of slave were your household slaves. There's any slave who worked inside the house, either in here ironing or sewing, working inside the kitchen preparing the meals, or working inside the maid house being a butler or maid. I mentioned ironing to you. This is the type of iron that they'd use right here. The top of this comes off of here and they fill the bottom section up with hot ash and coal from the fireplace. Place this top back on and lock it, and then you go ahead and iron. Now this weighs about 15 pounds when it's fully loaded up, so you can imagine using this for 7 or 8 hours a day. This iron right here is a candlestick. If you came into a room that was dark and you didn't have any candles or lamps, you take a piece of kindling wood, either pine or cypress, clip it on here and light up the other end, and it would light up the room quite nicely. And they also made candles here out of bayberry wax. You get a big vat of that bayberry wax together and cook it to get the excess water out of it. And then they do something called the stick and wick method, where they tie the wicks onto a stick, similar to what you see here, and they just dip them into the wax, pull them out, let them dry, dip them in again, pull them out, let them dry. And you could do that as many times as you wanted to a certain thickness of candle that you wanted. And over in this corner, you see a good example of cotton on the branch. They did grow cotton here on the plantation just for use here on the plantation. They would take that cotton and run it off on the spinning wheel into yarn, take the yarn a little bit into thread, and then they can make their own clothing, sheets, and quilts. Remember, they only made 1 trip to the store a month, so they'd be very self-sufficient. And this is a good example of that self-sufficiency I was speaking to you about a little bit earlier, make your own clothing, sheets, and quilts. When you finish with this item, you'd use this one right here. It's called a weasel. This was used to measure the yarn of the thread. Nothing ever went to waste here on the plantation. You always want to know exactly how much you had of everything, and that's the reason for this.
And here we are in the kitchen. Yeah, you see the candles right here?
And for good reason, they did all their cooking right here in this fireplace. You usually had a fire going there all the time. With that fire going there all the time like that, you'd have hot ash from the entire length of this fireplace, and you could actually use that hot ash to cook on. Now, one of the things you notice missing in here is an oven. How would you bake things like pies, cakes, and bread? You'd use this pan here. This is known as a spider pan, and this was used to bake with. Now, say make some cornbread. This one right here is a coffee bean roaster. They did not grow coffee here on the plantation. They did buy it in bulk, and they went to the store once a month, and they bought their beans raw and roasted. And here's a good example of raw and roasted coffee beans here. You take those raw beans, put them into the roaster, take the roaster, put it into the fire, and turn the handle on it. That way you roast the beans without burning them. Pull them out. Now you have roasted beans. You can see here. Take those roasted beans, put them on top of the coffee grinder here. Close this up, turn the wheel, and grind them up, and you have freshly ground coffee down below. Put a top on it, tie a rope on the top section of it, and throw it into the water cistern. The temperature of the water in the cistern was cooler than the air temperature, so keep it cooler out there in the water cistern than what if they tried to store it inside the kitchen. This one right here is a pie safe. It's used to store and cool food. The air could circulate through the tiny holes here, pulling out the food inside. But the bugs couldn't get inside because these holes are just too small to get themselves stuck before they got into your food. Sorts of disease and dysentery in it. Slaves couldn't work if they're sick all the time. Plus, it had a funny sulfur taste to it. So he decided not to use that groundwater. He wanted to use rainwater. You look over here. You notice there's a downspout that comes off the top of the house and goes right into the other end of that water system.
Exactly how I saw it.
Now the cistern is made of tabbies. You can see here it holds about 40,000 gallons of water. And it's tipped slightly so that the water will work its way from one end of the cistern down there to this end right here where the bucket is. And if you look inside here, you can actually see there's a thin wall of tabby that goes right down the middle of the water cistern. Now remember, tabby is made out of crushed and burned oyster shells, which forms lime. And limestone is a natural water purifier. So the water would actually work its way through that thin tabby wall, purifying itself as it did so. No need to boil the water.
Now we're heading upstairs to see the upstairs portion of the house. What do you think so far, babe?
This is exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting?
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. A lot of history here.
1865, when the Confederacy was defeated, a price was put on the head of all the Confederate leaders because they were held accountable for all loss of life during the war between the states. So one of two options at that particular point. You could either go into hiding and try and get out of the country, or you could turn yourself in and be hung, shot, or prison for the rest of your life. Of course, most went into hiding. And this bedroom we're about ready to enter into here is the last hiding place that Judah P. Benjamin used before he left for England. Now, if you think about it, this is a good place to hide because at that time, this entire area all the way around the house here was completely cleared out of all trees and vegetation. Tresco, along with Captain Curry, came down the Manatee River in cover of darkness, picked up Mr. Benjamin at the river's edge, took him down around the coast of Florida to the Bahamas, and there he went out to Cuba, and from Cuba he went out to England. Once he got to England, he studied English law and became a barrister, and eventually worked his way up to being a counselor on Queen Victoria's court before he passed away in the year 1884 in Paris. So this is the room that Mr. Benjamin used as his hiding place while he stayed here at Gamble Plantation.
So we're going into the bedroom. Look at those stairs. Look at the stairs right here. But there's the bedroom. Wow. I like that bed. Check it out.
We're about 10 miles away.
Okay.
On the door, and you had to protect yourselves from mosquitoes. They still carry things like malaria and yellow fever. You didn't want to get that. So one of the ways they protect themselves from mosquitoes were four-poster beds. They had mosquito netting. They draped them along the sides, keep the mosquitoes from getting to them while they slept at night. And they also wore long sleepwear, as you see here, covering their arms, legs, and neck to make sure those mosquitoes did not bite them. The bed that you see right here is a feather bed. If you ever slept on a feather bed, you know they can be very lumpy and that's uncomfortable to your back and neck. So they usually sent the slaves up an hour before bedtime with one of these. It is called a paddler plumper, and the slaves would use these on the beds for about 30 to 45 minutes per bed, flattening and plumping the beds up so you could sleep on it comfortably that evening. Outside to go.
So this one is Robert Gamble's bedroom.
The dining room and the back.
That chair right here. Look at his bed.
Major Robert Gamble taken in his later years. Picture above the fireplace, picture of General Robert E. Lee, the leader of the Confederate Army. The bed you see here next to me is known as a rope bed. It gets its name from the ropes you see that on the bottom section here holding the mattress up. With sleeping on it with humidity, those ropes will tend to sag a little bit. Your mattress will tend to sag a little bit. And you don't want to sleep on a saggy mattress, so you come around over here with a key, which is a long pole. Stick that key into this hole right here and push down on it. That will tighten these ropes up, firming your mattress up. Once you got those ropes into that tight position, there are two ratchets on either side of the bed that would hold those ropes in that tight position.
So I'm going to try to get closer. I had originally thought these two right here were headstones. They're not. They're actually markers. Memorial markers, actually, of the Civil War, primarily towards the Confederate. This building right here that you may see me pointing at is for the Daughters of the Confederacy, as well as that building. They're not open to the public and you can't really go in. I'm sure they don't want me to go in, but that's kind of what they're for. So they actually got a sundial here. So if you notice, it's approximately 2:45, and I would say that's pretty accurate, you think? Or unless this part is like noon.
This is 2.
So 2, and then where would 45 be?
45 would be like somewhere over here.
I don't think you can do. I think this gives you an approximate of like the hour though.
But that's about it.
I don't know how sundials work.
Because that's a 2. Look, this one is a 2. This is noon.
Oh, I see.
This one is 2. I wonder if it's these little sections right here.
Oh, because you kind of like it's like.
Right. I don't know. I know this is 2, but I wonder if it's these little lines right here that tell you what part of 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Because see, it's not exactly on 2. It's a little over from 2.
Yeah, that makes
so
sense.
So the closer you get over there, lets you know the closer you are to the time.
Got it.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So here would be like the sugar rollers that they would use to process sugar. Look how big those things are. You can just see how big these things are. And this definitely seems a lot more compact than the one I saw at it's another sugar field that you'll see. But yeah, take a look at those. And then they'll bring them over here to these big pots and then boil them, I believe. So you can see right here, quite authentic. And then this is the fields that guy was talking about. You can kind of see how much land is out there. What do you do when you leave a tour of a plantation? We're gonna go eat at the River House, which is right off the docks, right here.
The guy was giving me rides to the River House.
Uh-huh.
From the front.
So he had like a cart?
Yeah.
But it's alright, we chose to walk, so we're all the way there. Almost there anyway.
We're at the Regatta Point Marina.
Regatta Point Marina?
Yes.
So we're sitting right next to the river. See, they have tours right here, like a tour boat. She gets Snapchatting with her iced tea, and I got my fruity drink that you can only enjoy by the river. Alright, so we just got done having, is it lunch or brunch?
No, brunch is too late. It's almost 5, so like, lunch, dinner?
Dinner. Alright, but that's it. We're done. The plantation was a lot of fun. I had a good time. There's a little bit of another look into Florida history. We're pretty much sure that we're going to do more of that though.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, but that's it. We're out of here. We're not sick of it, of the history, but I think we're done for the day.
I'm full.
And she's full. Alright, that's it. I'm out.
Make the ground shake.